We are reintegrating. Welcome back to Movies Are So Back, the YouTube movie review channel where I, Ethan Simmie, ask the question, are movies so back? Except we're talking about Severance, because I've been talking about Severance for 2 weeks now, and episode 3, titled Who is Alive? Who is Alive is here, and we're going to continue this Severance conversation as we do on a weekly basis here on the channel. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for this channel so you can be notified when my Severance review goes up every single week, talking about the latest episode of Severance. And boy, I feel like we went into fifth gear with this episode, and it's not going to be the last time that it feels like that. I think we are really just starting to ramp up. Last week, I was a little colder on the episode. It was an episode that I didn't really anticipate from a pace perspective and a lore perspective, but this week, we are back kind of on the peak of Severance Mountain, and I have so many questions and so many things to discuss and talk about and wonder about. So let's get into the episode. I do want to start out by giving a shout out to the cinematography of this episode. The fluidity and the dynamic nature with which we are moving through Lumon and Mark's life and the way that he sees the world is incredible. And I just want to give a shout out to the hardworking people of this television show for putting in the time and making it worth the 3-year wait with really, really smart and effective visual language choices. And I thought that was really cool this week. This episode essentially sees us linking up to the end of episode 1, right? Episode 1 happened, we learned a lot of things. Episode 2 happened and was kind of a flashback and took us back to understand some more things. And now episode 3 is here and we are back moving forward, having forward progression in the narrative, in the timeline, in the story. And I feel like a lot of things transpired in this episode that really broadened, again, the world of Lumon, something that we really took to last episode. But I feel like this episode was much more kind of in the vein of Severance, where it's like, what does that mean? That has a second meaning. Where are we going? What is going to happen next? Especially with Mark and his reintegration. Like I screamed because we're reintegrating. I think this is a great move for episode 3 of a 10-episode season, and it's really going to drive us forward. Miss Wong shows up again in this episode. We saw her in episode 1. We still don't really know what's going on with her. She's not your friend. I'll tell you that. She's not my friend. She shouldn't be your friend. And she is a child. And I commend Dylan for asking her what the deal is with her being a kid. And she just doesn't say anything. Would it be too much to ask to put out there and say, maybe she's not a human? Wow. I don't know if we're going there, but that just popped into my head. Maybe she's not a real life child. Maybe she is the next evolution of what Lumon is trying to create in terms of a perfect person that really obeys what they set forth. That could be happening here. But the kind of siloed narrative and storyline with Dylan, I think, is important to dive into very briefly because it is a very isolating narrative, both like literally narratively, like we go and do this with Dylan, but also thematically, because this is one of the guys that is going through the most isolation out of this group of 4 people. He gets rewarded an 18-minute reward with his wife, whom of course he doesn't know. I found this scene heartbreaking, truly and utterly heartbreaking. I just want to give a shout out to Dylan's wife. The actress is in Marriage Story as well, and I always perk up when I see her in projects. I think she's really, really great and is great in this show. Now, important things to know. Dylan is a loser. Dylan is a fuck up. And that is really sad. It's just really sad. And you know what? So what if I teared up during this scene? What are you going to say about it? Because when he learns about his children, and he has a 6 and a 4 and a 2-year-old, and he is like, they're awesome. Boy, that got to the dad in me. That got to the dad in me. And it is such a strange thing to see happening to somebody when they don't obviously know about this world. Important kind of I guess like logistical context for this, or questions for this interaction here. Looks like Dylan's wife is a night cop or a night security guard. They kind of switch on and off on shifts. And it's kind of reestablished that Dylan is kind of maybe not the best person when he isn't outie, because he just forgets to make the cookies for one of his kids' classes. And that's sad. That's really sad. I have a feeling we're going to reveal a lot more about Dylan and his personal life and who he is as a person. I don't think we really know like why he is severed quite yet, other than the fact that like maybe he doesn't want to associate with being a loser and a fuck up, and that in and of itself is totally okay. There's this reoccurring theme throughout the episode this week of pride and taking pride in your work and being proud of a partner, of a spouse and their work. And we see it with Dylan and his wife. We see it with Rickon and his partner. We see it with Miss Cobell in the parking lot talking about why she's proud of the work she has done with master data refinement. So there is this like reoccurring theme of people being proud of their partners and of each other and themselves in the work that they are doing. And I think that that is something really kind of important to circle around moving forward for this show, because I think it does drive a lot of the relationships and the reasoning behind maybe why Severance is effective for some people. Also just thought it was the funniest thing in the world, literally the funniest moment of the show so far, when Dylan asks if him and his family like live on a saloon or a farm or whatever he asks, is just, I cackled. Another really important thing to dive into this episode is Mr. Milchek, Seth, and basically how he receives what are called inclusively recanonicalized paintings from Natalie and from the board for his ascension within the company. Again, this idea of being proud of your work, being rewarded for that, and feeling value in the work, and feeling value from those around you. Again, like just really important to note, Natalie and Seth and Mr. Milchek are doing a lot of speaking with their eyes in this episode. Just shout out to those actors for really honing in on that for this episode. Really impressive stuff. Lumon is always listening, of course, and I think both of them know that, having ascended and risen to the ranks. But what makes this so important and imperative is that it gives us an insight into how Lumon views race and recontextualizes history to fit their own narrative. And essentially, Mr. Milchek is just given all of these paintings that recanonicalizes, as they state, all of their murals, but instead puts a person of color in the forefront, as Mr. Milchek is. And I think that's a really fascinating, if not slightly deranged, view into Kier and Lumon and their legacy, and how they believe history can just be kind of sliced and diced and told exactly how that person needs to see it, wants to see it, feels seen in seeing it. I think there's a lot of thematic overlap, obviously, with the real world and life. But that's a really interesting thing that I hope we continue to dive into on a lore perspective as well, and just like how Lumon views their employees, especially employees of diversity. What's the deal with Salt's Neck? What's the deal with Miss Cobell driving to what appeared to be like a city limit? We see a sign, Salt's Neck, 238 miles. There is one house kind of out on that field. She has like a breathing tube or a breathing apparatus of some sort. If you have any ideas about this, please comment below and let me know, because this is a perplexing pickle that I find myself in with this situation. Is there some kind of like barrier to the city that they're living in? Like, does Lumon have, like a bubble over them or something? I don't know. I hope we don't really visit that too soon. I kind of want that to be an end of season thing, if maybe we're getting that big, but that I found that interesting and questionable. Let's talk about the goats. Let's talk about mammalians nurturable. This is what this department is labeled as, is called, and it's weird, guys. I don't know. It's weird. What do the goats mean? Still don't really have an answer. Why are there people there that essentially appear as though they have never seen civilization or a shower? I think that's fascinating. Why was their first instinct that MDR is coming to kill them? That's interesting. I don't know. I obviously don't like what Helena is doing here. Every time that Helena speaks, I just kind of mumble a little F you under my breath, because she's a terrible person. But I think it's a really smart device for this show to have someone like her that's on the inside. Obviously really confirmed this episode that it is Helena on the inside in the Innie's position here, and helping Mark in the search for Miss Casey And the decisions and choices that she makes to like reiterate when he wants help or to kind of throw in the towel early to stop pushing other departments for answers is really something. It's really interesting. And I think it's like kind of yucky, and it makes me mad, but it's also really important to where this story is going. What's the deal with the pouches? This is a huge question that I have. So they ask one more question for MDR, for Mark and for Helly. They're like, hey, before you go, we're not going to impede on your search for Miss Casey, but we have a question for you. Can we see your bellies? Strange in and of itself. And then they kind of whisper they're pouchless. And then one of the guys is like, it proves nothing. This is just weird. I don't know. I'm a little bit of a loss for words. Again, I think it does reiterate this fact of like Lumon is trying to build the perfect person, and the fact that they have an entire department titled mammalians nurturable. Gosh, that's a tough one. Means that they are in fact trying to nurture a perfect mammal. And does that include pouches or not? And it also tells us that the employees of Lumon, the innies of Lumon, of course, as we already know, are just like not given a lot of context for their jobs. They don't even know that humans don't have pouches. Did they hear legend of humans having pouches? I don't know, and I don't know when we're gonna know, but it's interesting. A couple of quick final things to mention, and then I'll do the winner of the episode and the loser of the episode and predictions for next week. Natalie is at the home of Rickon reading his book. Lumon is infiltrating people. Lumon is infiltrating, and Rickon is all too happy to put out an any exclusive version of this book. And it's a really interesting dynamic with the idea and the theme of pride and being proud in your work, because Natalie is giving Rickon that kind of confirmation of like, you should be proud of this work. Devin doesn't necessarily do that with his book. Devin is definitely I think views herself as a better person than Rickon, if not just different than Rickon and different in her interests and where her time and allegiances lie. So that dynamic will be really interesting to explore as we get further into the episode. And then we get kind of the standoff between Miss Cobell and Helena in the parking lot. Miss Cobell offered to go speak with the board, then runs away. Again, harkens back to being proud of your work and then not feeling this pride and being scared of what you stand for and what you stand on. They are really at odds, and I'm really enjoying it, and I think they have a great dynamic with each other. I think the Miss Cobell stuff in this episode was a little sporadic and a little like just not really kind of put together in a nice little package, but I think it's designed to be that way. I think this is one of the more mysterious storylines of the show, for sure. And then obviously we end with Mark being reintegrated, and getting Ragabi to start helping him with reintegration, and a great little visual set at the end with Mark being, kind of in the headset and then winding up on the desk for intake questions. I think episode 4 is really going to be fun, and I think we've started to kind of blow the lid off of things and move in a really breakneck pace and direction. Who won the episode? Last week, Helena won the episode because her storyline really kicked off about her being an innie and an outie. This week, the Lumon parking lot is the winner of the episode. Great introduction, great camera movement, Mark running through the parking lot, timing how long it takes him to get to the elevator and descend to the Severance floor. We get the standoff between Cobell and Helena in the parking lot, and kind of this shift in power dynamics that's really important to where the story is going. So shout out to the parking lot. You're the big winner of this episode. Congrats. And the loser of this episode. Last week, my guy Rickon lost the episode. People didn't appreciate him enough, and I felt really bad for him, and he was the loser of the episode. And this week it's the goats. And you want to know why it's the goats? It's the goats because they don't know that they are living with a man in a Black Phillip goat costume on a regular basis. And that makes me sad. And I feel like they should know. And I feel like it's unfair to the goats. So they have lost this episode. Also secondary because we don't understand them and we don't know what they're doing. And so yeah, the losers of the episodes. God, what do the goats mean? What do the goats mean? Quick predictions for next week's episode. I think Mark is going to start catching on to the Helena side of things. Some piece of information will be revealed. I think it's about time in the next 1 or 2 episodes that narrative starts formulating and taking place and taking off so as to isolate Mark and his personal journey. Obviously, this show a huge thematic scope of isolation and what that means for each individual. So I think that is going to start taking off. I think Dylan is going to reveal more to his MDR teammates about meeting his wife and what different kind of prizes are on the line now. And I think that'll set off a chain of events of people starting to ask more and more questions. And my long shot prediction, we're going to learn that some people have pouches at Lumon. You know, anything's possible. People could have pouches. Maybe Miss Wong has a pouch for all we know. I don't know. It's Severance. Anything can happen. Is TV so back? Yes, TV is so back. This was a great episode of Severance, and I'm really enjoying taking this show 1 week at a time and enjoying the madness of the world of Lumon and the file of Cold Harbor and the absolute sad state of affairs for Dylan and Irv and Mark and just kind of everybody involved in Severance. What did you think about this week's episode? Leave a comment down below to let me know what your favorite part was, who your winner or loser of the episode was, and maybe predictions for next week. And we can kind of go on this Lumon Severance journey together as a team. You know, as Mark tries to instill in the GOAT people who will stand up when people go missing. We will. I need your help figuring out what's going to happen next in Severance. I'm bad at predicting things. Remember, you can like this video and subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so you don't miss next week's review when I do put that out. You can also find all of my musings about movies on Letterboxd. Follow me there, and I'll see you in the next video.